In looking at Easter and contemplating Easter, it sure seems that that person we call Jesus Christ is an artist. Jesus was an artist, don't you think? But when I say that, I have to realize that he didn't write anything. He didn't paint anything. And blasted, he didn't even jot down some notes on the Sermon on the Mount. Somebody else had to make notes along the way. There are quite a few things I wish he had kind of sketched out and would have left some kind of written record. He didn't write, he didn't paint. His medium was his life. He was an artist in living his life. His medium was himself. You know, an artist might say to you, and I would say to you, if you haven't seen the picture at the back of the room, take a look. It's beautiful. Carol brought it to us. Yeah, Silent Unity. Yeah, it's beautiful. An artist would say, hey, look at this beautiful painting, or look at this beautiful picture. Jesus says, look at me, and you will see God. He said things like that, right? He who sees me seeth the Father. Look unto me, and you will see God. He knew that was the most important thing he could leave with us, is the realization that we are always one with God. His greatest masterpiece, the demonstration of the resurrection. Think about it. An obscure prophet from a small little place in the Middle East. He may have made an impression there to a small group of people, but if he hadn't taken the next step, even though he thought, I don't want to do this, I don't want to have to go through this, but they need to see this. They need to see that power of God that's in them. And the only way is for me to show them. So I use that opportunity to teach us what is the greatest realization, that we are spiritual beings. Spiritual beings always one with the Creator, always one with God, always one with eternal life and divine intelligence, divine protection, divine guidance. Always, always connected. The realization of our spiritual beingness is a very high point in consciousness. When you can reach that place where you realize that you're not a human being, you're a spiritual being having a human experience. That spiritual part of you is so much greater than that human part of you. You can do all things, be all things, overcome all things through that divine Spirit of God that's been implanted in you since the beginning. But you have to realize it. And when I say realize it, I mean it has to be real to you. Not just a theory, not I hope this is true, but it has to be real. Knowing, pure knowing. We don't realize what we really are in truth until we know within ourselves that we are spiritual. This is the resurrection. The conscious knowledge that I am a spiritual being and that all things in essence are spiritual. I have said things over the years. I have said things about life, about the life that's in us, about the life that's in my cat. And I didn't know for sure that Charles Fillmore had ever said any such thing as I had said. But I just discovered he did. This is from a talk from April 12th. Isn't that so funny? April 12th, 1914. There is but one life, one substance, and one intelligence, and that all things express that life, that substance, that intelligence. That they express it and manifest it according to their understanding of themselves as that life, that substance, that intelligence. I have said there's one mind. That is God mind. You are a point of expression in God mind. Your pet, it has the same mind in it. It has God mind moving in and through it. Your life is God life. There is no other source of life. But Goldie, that's walking up the aisle right now, Goldie's life comes from the same source. Thank you, Charles Fillmore. There is but one life, one substance, and one intelligence. And that life, that substance, that intelligence, all things express. The life and the resurrection of Jesus Christ is often viewed and taught from one of two different viewpoints or standards. I'd like you to pick your favorite. The first and the most popular comes out of the orthodox Christian church. Jesus is the Son of God. He was crucified, died, and resurrected. And he ascended into heaven and sits at God's right hand as a judge of mankind. The purpose of his death was to save our souls. You're familiar with all of that, right? That's the first one. The other teaching comes from unorthodox Christians, the mystics. And Charles Fillmore would say the teaching of primitive or early Christianity. They view Jesus, his life and teaching through the lens of logic and truth. They teach that Jesus was crucified, that he died but had developed the power which resides in every one of us until he resurrected his body and refined that body invisible to the physical eyes. That body is here in the midst of us as a seed of life for all of us who believe in it, who enter into it with faith, seeking to make their consciousness its consciousness. Charles Fillmore said, and he said, standing up at this lectern, Jesus Christ has been seen many times during our service here on this platform. In his fourth dimension body, in other words, not in a physical body, but a body of light, a body of energy, a body of power. In the years in this room here, in this building, I've had people come up and tell me they saw a presence up on this stage during our service. I like to think that's that fourth dimensional body of Jesus Christ. And he is still here in the midst of us. I said he was an artist. Jesus was an artist. And his greatest work was his life. And his demonstration of resurrection so that we could follow him as he had directed us to do. Do you remember? Follow me. But all the way, not just so far. Don't just get some of the good prosperity ideas from a truth class. Don't just get an idea of maybe a healing, and that's it. Go all the way to that, finding that awareness within you of that divine presence, Christ in you. And you can only do that by looking within, finding that presence of God life, God intelligence, God substance within you, and saying that you are it. You are an expression of the power of God right here and right now. Remember, Jesus said, he could lay down his body and pick it up again. So can we. But we need to keep walking and keep moving towards that place where we stand forth in all that perfection with which God created each one of us. Beings of light, not creatures of fear. Beings of health, not victims of illness. Beings of love, not children of hate. Jesus said to his disciples after his resurrection, after he had come into a consciousness of himself as a spiritual being, he said, and I quote, "All power and authority is given unto you. Go forth and proclaim this power and authority, this mastery over all things." He could have been saying that to you or to me or any one of all of us, because that same power is there. That same ability is there. Back when he said, "Follow me," he knew we could. He wasn't being cruel and telling us to do something we couldn't possibly do. Follow me. Now, in some portrayals of the crucifixion, they're pretty ugly. There's been one playing on television recently, and I can't even watch it. The scene is hideous, and I'm sure that's intentional. But you don't have to go through a crucifixion like that, as it's pictured in Jesus' life. We have our crucifixions. We do. Think times where we have to cancel out some error belief in our minds, where something that no longer serves our highest good has to die so that we can resurrect to a higher state of understanding. We have to let go of some false concepts. The deaths of old thought and our resurrections of the new thoughts. Every time you come to a resurrection, and you've come to several already, I'm sure, when you come to that understanding of your spiritual being, you lift up your whole body, soul and body. Jesus said, if I be lifted up, will draw all unto me. He told us, let your eye be single. That single eye of spirit that sees God only, that sees life only, that is not afraid of sickness or disease, but knows that the Spirit of God is greater than anything that comes to us. When you lift up that single eye, it will throw light into the whole body. You don't have to go to heaven. You find heaven is within you, here and now. As Jesus said, lo, I am with you always. The Father and the Son make their presence known to you and through you. So embrace a spiritual resurrection. Be raised from limitation of every kind into the fullness of God power. Not something you have to get, something you have to discover within yourself as you resurrect from ignorance into understanding, from darkness into light.